you know, I guess you've got to say that cricket is a tradition, a heritage of Australia. And then, you know, a lot of Australia's recognition overseas has come from its cricketers. It's other sportsmen as well, but certainly some of it has come from its cricketers.
Believing that by means of the talking screen, we can do something to foster cricket in this, our native land, we have cooperated in the production of this film. And if anything that experience has taught us can be passed on to the younger generation of cricketers, we shall have achieved our object.
The only real tradition that means anything to me at all is the player tradition. You know, the names that have come before me. Suddenly you're wearing a green cap and you think back and you've got the Bennos and the Bradmans and the Millers and the Lindwalls and these people who have worn the green cap, and probably for many years, until you really become an established test player, you start to wonder to yourself when you think of these names, you know, am I really good enough for this standard? And the fact that so many good players have played for Australia and come before you, you know, I think it's only a natural thing that you do wonder about this.
I should like to present to you Don Bradman, the possessor of more records than a gramophone company. Mr. Woodfall had something to say about records that have come my way. It must always be remembered that for a batsman to break a record, someone has got to stay at the other end. Therefore, any plaudits that come my way for record breaking must be shared by my teammates who so efficiently supported me throughout. Play the game for the game's sake is my advice to the youngsters coming on, and keep your eye on the ball.
It's the player tradition that encourages the young blokes in the backyard or, you know, out in the street with a kerosene tin. It encourages them to go out. The fact that he sees Richie Benno at the Sydney Cricket Ground and Richie Benno takes 5 wickets and suddenly he goes home and he's fired with the enthusiasm to be a leg spinner. Or he sees Alan Davidson bowling fast and taking wickets, and once again he's got this enthusiasm to be a fast bowler, or same thing with a batsman. As I said, to me this is the only tradition that really means much. Coaching is very important. You get the players who have been coached a lot, who become Australian players. You also get the player who isn't coached very much, and he makes this the great as an Australian player. So it's very difficult to define which is the best way of treating a kid, whether you coach him a lot or whether you just sort of let him go his own natural way, because both types have made Australian teams. But I think that basically there's got to be you know, a basic technique that it's got to come from a coach, or it's got to be coached into the lad. And from there, he's got a natural ability of his own, he's got a good eye, he's got natural shots that he plays that perhaps somebody else doesn't play. And it is the coach's ability to recognise these and to not try and make him a stereotype player. And this is, I think, why Australia have been so good at cricket, because we don't produce stereotype players. It's the shots, I think, that are the most important thing. These natural shots that the kids have that can't be stifled by a coach. They've got to be encouraged by the coach.
Right, well, now that's fine. You've just got 4 runs from the shot you played before that one, and that was the reason I want you to play it again. Just leave your feet there, and I'll show you the difference between what you've done and what really should have been done. Your stance is there, and you finished up with that foot pointing down there and playing your cover drive out there with a tremendous gap between bat and pad. The ball can swing in. I'm not saying it's wrong, you've just got 4 from the shot. That's fine, it all goes down the scorebook. But what you should be doing is having that foot across there and the bat coming through close to the pad so that you're cover driving out through there. That is the way to do it, so you give the bowler far less margin to get through. That way you still get your 4 runs and you stay in all the time.
But if I point my foot there, is it not right that I can come straight through in a straight line, come back front on and look where the bat is? Now you pay $30 for one of these, you may as well use all of it. You're all prepared to admit that if you're this way, that you're playing with half a cricket bat that isn't good value? So you've got to be side on to play with all of it, right? Cricket would be awfully simple if it was like golf and the ball was just standing still and all you had to do was walk up to it and hit it.
A good crowd here on this, the second day of the second test match at the Sydney Cricket Ground. This ball from Hadley, Stackpole. Snicked and caught. He's caught at third slip. A nice catch as it flew straight to third slip with Morrison waiting for it there. He moved to that away swinger. I thought that previous ball unsettled him, and he leant for that one, and he was caught at third slip, the ball travelling comfortably about chest high to Morrison in that position. But I think Hadley can take credit for 2 balls before that unsettled Stackpole, and now Stackpole is out. Caught Morrison, bowled Richard Hadley for 8, and it's 1 wicket for 20. So that brings Sheehan in strike with Andrews bowling into this light breeze with New Zealand all out in their first innings for 312. Andrews turns, moving in again from the Randwick or the southern end to bowl to Sheehan, who plays it defensively. A good, correct defensive shot there. Andrews with conditions which should suit him today to get that ball to move around, the atmosphere fairly heavy and the breeze coming into him as he goes into bowl to Sheehan. And Sheehan plays it defensively for 1 run.
Most schools have a cricket team, so the young lad probably just through some enthusiasm that he has for the game, or the fact that he probably plays a bit of lunchtime cricket and he is a little better than his mates, he suddenly gets picked in a cricket team for the school, and then he just goes from there. As he starts to get a bit bigger and a bit better, he probably then starts to think a little bit about what club that he might play for, and he comes up through his club ranks till he makes his club side. And from there, if he's good enough, he impresses the state selectors, he gets in the state practice squad, and eventually, if he's good enough, he gets a game in the state side. And then, of course, you're trying to attain the highest honour possible, and that's to play for Australia.
Boys, we're very, very lucky this afternoon to have with us Mr. Brian Tabor, who's the representative of the Rothmans Foundation, and he's kindly consented to come along to talk to you for a little while about cricket. Mr. Tabor.
Mr. Harvey, thank you very much indeed. It's a pleasure to be here. Also with me today is Mr. Peter Spence, who is the New South Wales cricket coach. We'll just have a chat with you for a little while on some of the basic fundamentals of cricket.
Oh, bad ball. This one's like this. Start back here and just lob the ball like that.
Now you look up at the bowling, right? Right, and just lean back a little bit. Just relax your arm a little bit. Right, is that comfortable? Right, ready to play. Now, what's the first movement? Where does your bat go? Yes, right, a nice straight back kick, isn't it? Right. Now you're all set ready to play.
Greg is probably one of the best, if not the best, all-round cricketer in Australia. He's a very good fieldsman in any position you like to put him. He's a more than useful seam bowler, especially when conditions suit that type of bowling. He can exploit it pretty well, and of course he's one of our main batsmen. But he's a very important part of the Australian side. Doug Walters is similar to Greg in that under certain conditions he can be an extremely valuable bowler. Under most conditions really he can be an extremely valuable bowler. He's the type of cricketer that I class who's never out of the game. He always seems to be taking a catch or doing a brilliant piece of fielding. He's always likely to get a run out. He's such a good fielder. If he's bowling, there always seems to be the opportunity that he'll pick up a wicket. And of course if he's batting, he's a very aggressive type of batsman, a great stroke maker. But also, he's the sort of player that I regard as someone I can rely on when the chips are really down. The tougher the situation, I think the more you feel you can rely on Doug. Doug is probably a very important bloke in the dressing room because he's a character, a practical joker, somebody who keeps the dressing room laughing, and on a long tour of, say, England, where you're away for 6 months, these fellas can be pretty important as well as their ability on the field. And just to me, I suppose the greatest praise I could give Doug is that if I ever went on a tour and Doug Walters wasn't there, it just wouldn't seem the same to me. To me, he's an integral part of Australian cricket. Sometimes being captain perhaps it affected my batting. Not very much, but there were just odd times when I'd be batting away and I'd be suddenly thinking about certain lines of captaincy that I had in my mind, and it may not even be reflected to the situation that the batting situation that we're in. But I'd suddenly have to say to myself, you know, come on now, get back onto the job of batting, and my mind would be wandering off. But now I think that I've got used to this sort of thing, and I realise that when I'm out there batting, I'm just really a batsman in the team, and my job is to get runs for the team. And I don't really become captain again until I get out, and then you've got to look at the situation as a captain. There are times on tour when you've got responsibilities as captain, you've got players who've got problems and they want to talk to you about it, and you know, I'm always open for discussion as far as that is concerned. But most of the time I would like to feel that I'm just one of the members of the team, that they can treat me as a similar sort of person to themselves, that I'm always there to talk to, whether they want to talk seriously about their cricket or whether there's something else they want to discuss. And I've been together with most of these blokes for such a long time that I think that they do just treat me as one of the boys, until there are times when they've got to give you the respect of the captaincy. Some days when if I get, you know, bowled out for a cheap score and, you know, I've been beaten by a good ball or I've got out to a good ball, I just resign myself to the fact that it was a good ball, and you know, okay, that was the bowler's day against me. But I think now that I tend to feel annoyed at myself and get to the stage where you know, I swear and curse a bit because I've got out to a stupid shot or I've done something silly, or, you know, I felt that I should have done better than what I did, and I probably feel this feeling more often now than the one of elation.
The aim of the Rothmans National Cricket Coaching Plan is to develop 10,000 coaches in 5 years. You've all received a copy of the Comprehensive Coaching Manual, and your job as coaches will be to assist and develop the natural abilities of players so that they can enjoy the game much more as players and spectators.
Brian, I'd like you to move your front foot over closer to the ball and get more of your weight onto the front foot. That's it, and get right over the top of the ball.
Good. Well, now Kerry drops straight onto those two things straight away, and they're two very important parts of the forward defensive shot. When you're out coaching young players, it's very important that they remember to get their weight well forward on the front foot so that they're well balanced and their head and shoulders are over the line of the ball, and that their back foot's just keeping the even balance there.
Now, what was the trouble there? Sally?
Well, you should be looking from behind your front arm instead of in front of it. You had your arm right back like this, where you should have it right over, looking over your shoulder.
Right, so I should have a high front arm, look behind the front arm. What else is going to assist me to get into that position? Right?
Back foot parallel with the bowling crease.
Right, if I can get my back foot parallel with the bowling crease, that's going to enable me to get side on, look behind the front arm. These are a couple of things that are most important when you're coaching young bowlers.
I've found that over the last few years, women seem to be taking a far greater interest in cricket. And now, at a couple of the coaching schools I've been to, you've got women coming up and wanting to be coached at cricket. And there just seems to be something there about cricket that gets people in. I don't know what it is. The local club cricketer, I guess he just plays because he loves the game of cricket. It's his Saturday afternoon recreation. It's his way of getting away from business pressures, or it's his way of getting out of the house for the day and having some sort of relaxation. But you probably find that in this case that the club cricketer, Saturday afternoon cricketer, is the person who loves the game very much. He plays the game purely for the love of it. In most cases, he's got to pay quite a bit of money to play this game, but he does it because he loves it. And I guess that they're the people who are the backbone of cricket because of their love for the game. Cricket has become an entertainment, I think, more so than it's still a sport. It's always going to be a sport, but the entertainment side of it has become far more. I think the players are far more aware of it, and I think spectators are expecting more entertainment. And so you are now really more like, as well as being sportsmen, you're probably like an actor on the stage. And I think it's always been important that there be characters in the game of cricket. You know, somebody who can play up to the crowd. If you've got a couple of these blokes on your side, they're worth gold to, well, they're worth gold to the administrators, but they're worth a lot to their own team because they keep the crowd on side. I think that's great, and the crowd, I'm sure, enjoy it. Ian Davis is one who really you can't talk about on the Test scene yet because he's only just walked into Test cricket. But from what I've seen of the lad, he's got an extremely good temperament. He doesn't appear to be overawed by Test cricket. He's a tremendously good fielder. He surprised me a little bit in his fielding in his early Test matches. So I think he's done extremely well, and I can see him being a very hard worker at the game. Somebody who you know, works hard at his game, but his importance to Australian cricket is going to probably get greater over the next few years. And so it is very important to be, if possible, blooding young players reasonably regularly. And if you can blood them when the team is playing well and they're with good players around them, I think it does make it a little bit easier for the young players.
The country coaching class was first started in 1948. The idea of the scheme is that the cream of country cricketers are brought down to the New South Wales headquarters, the Sydney Cricket Ground, and they receive a week's intensive coaching. The boys come down here and they live, eat and sleep cricket.
And so the bat came through at an angle, not straight, right? Not only that, all you're doing now is hitting it with your hands, aren't you? Creating a gap, giving the bowler a chance that he doesn't deserve, right?
Which way did you flick your finger? Yeah, your finger so that it's charging it that way, cutting down that side of the ball. Which way is the seam going to stand up? Oh, the seam's standing up that way, and that nicked away pretty well. So we can have a look at it again.
The bloke over there admitted to me that he's a better player now than he was at the start of the week. He hasn't got runs all year, but he feels as if he can.
Well, they've been having a hit before breakfast, after breakfast, and then after lunch.
Yeah, it must improve.
Now, this is the thing that's been drummed into them the whole week.
Yeah.
By all the visitors, yourself included, Bobby Simpson, Richie Bennett. They've all said that you've just got to practice.
Yeah, that's right.
You've got to work terribly hard at it.
Yeah.
Oh, this kid over here in the last net is a good player.
Yeah, he came across that there. He's adapted well today, though, hasn't he? He's got that back foot across on his side on the whole
I've
way.
said it in here, mate.
Looks like the goods.
Like him a lot. I'd like him for Balmain, actually.
Oh, word, he's pretty young.
Right, Don. I just want to see if he drops it short, I'll be on the back foot straight away. Ball.
If you like to look at our present-day batting lineup, and there's something different about all of them, which a coach or which coaches can't produce, can't say that they've produced a stereotype player. And I would hate to think that coaching got to the stage where it did produce stereotype players. And I think the basic principles and the basic techniques have got to be taught the same to everybody. And as I say, I'm pleased that so much more has been done for coaching and that more kids are being coached.
Right, hold it there. Now that's good. But you've got that head high, you've got that, you're reaching for the sky there. Right, now you must, and that foot's nicely braced. So I want to see you follow through, just follow through across that. That's the stuff, yeah. Now that, if you can just get that rhythmic and go through that monotonously at every ball, then accuracy will be no problem. And that's where you've improved in a matter of 4 days.
The biggest thrill that I get out of coaching is going along and you see a bloke run up and you suddenly, there's something that just seems to fire your enthusiasm. You think, gee, this kid, maybe at 10 years' time I'll be at a test match watching him, and another time I've seen players, they're batting away and suddenly they'll hit a shot and suddenly you really get an enthusiasm to coach this kid and you want to make the clock jump ahead and see this kid in 10 years' time and see how really good this kid becomes. Obviously, it's only the odd one that does go on to reach the standard of state cricket or of international cricket, but I think that this is the greatest thrill that I get, seeing the kid suddenly do something that looks like one of the present-day players that you're playing with. If he is a country boy, he probably feels that if he has this ambition to get a little bit further than just the average cricketer, he probably finds then that he's got to come down to the city and play for one of the city clubs. You get fellas like, well, once again, Bradman is probably the greatest example of a country player who I think in New South Wales they seem to get more opportunity to be seen. And they even have Jack Chegwin, who is a selector. He goes around the country quite often, and New South Wales have seemed to have found more country players than any other state. Bradman, as I mentioned, is a great example. He came down to Sydney, played club cricket. Of our present-day side, Doug Walters is one who was cited in the country as a good player. He came down, he played club cricket, and of course he's now made the Australian side. Ian Davis, the latest addition to the Australian side, also a similar example, came from the country. The player tradition is probably the thing that encourages the young player to even his first game of cricket. And I think even more so now, because perhaps in the olden days it meant that you virtually had to be at the ground to see these blokes play. You didn't get the chance to watch them on television. Your only other opportunity was to hero worship them over the wireless. Kids are great mimics, and you see them around mimicking the actions of the heroes of their own mind. And I think that basically, probably 90% of kids are probably fired by this hero worship of the players, and this is once again the player tradition. Crowds have changed a lot, I think, in the last few years. I don't mind this crowd participation. I think it's great from the point of view of the barracking. Having just come back from the West Indies, and they really like to participate there, and I can see Australian crowds, especially at the recent Sydney Test against New Zealand, the crowds really participated there, and I thought it was great. The fact that they chanted, and there was a lot of, to me it was only good-natured booing. I may have accepted it the wrong way, but I thought it was only good-natured. It didn't upset me all that much. But one thing about crowds that does annoy me, and I think it is ridiculous, and that's this coming over the fence business. When somebody gets 100, jumping the fence, coming out, holding up the game, I think that is over the fence. When it first started happening, I thought it was great because you had the young blokes. A lot of young blokes would come out. If it was only the 9 and 10-year-olds and 11-year-olds who, really are only hero worshipping, they want to come out and just touch their hero or shake him by the hand or pat him on the back or something. The fact that they've been out in the middle of a test match and their great hero has just made 100 and they've stood right next to him as he's made his 100, a great thing for a kid to talk about. But when it gets to the stage of blokes being out in the middle and, you know, they've obviously had too much to drink and they're out there bashing blokes on the back, well then I think it's gone a little bit too far. But the main thing, I don't think that's the really important thing. The important thing is that they want to come along to cricket. If they want to come along, it shows they've got some sort of interest and that they've got some sort of feeling for the game. All right, if they are reasonably ignorant of the game, if they come often enough, they're going to find out and they're going to learn about the game. If they're interested enough to come along, I think this is the most important thing. They expect to be entertained and they want to participate in the entertainment. And to me, it's a good atmosphere to play in.
Cricket, yes, it's in the blood of Britishers, something that is passed on from generation to generation. Through the centuries it has gone on, a testing ground of sportsmen and sportsmanship. And through the centuries to come, may it still go on. The bond of sporting friendship that helps unite an empire and remain forever what it is today, the king of sport.
I don't care what you're not saying, I'm not out, but I'm not going out. Oh, why don't you keep you on the ball?
Back to Andrews as he commences his run to move up and bowl to Walters. And Walters drives him again, but this time he puts it away. It won't be four. He hasn't timed it well enough for four, but they've run 1, 2, and Dale Hadley feeling, and Chappell wants the third, and he's moving quickly. He has to, and he makes his ground for the third run. So Walters moves on to 14, and it's now 3 for 58 with Chappell on 22.